Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for Market Rebellion. It's Tuesday morning, and yesterday, kicking off the week, it was pretty interesting because we had this disconnect has now kind of come back into play. And what I mean by that is yesterday, the Dow was screaming to the upside. It opened strong, it finished strong, it stayed strong, didn't finish on the highs. We were up about 300 points, but we did close up about 240 points. We'd recaptured and we were holding on to that 34,000 level. On the other hand, you take a look over at the NASDAQ. Not quite the same story. As a matter of fact, we dropped and lost that 14,000 level there. We quickly slipped, kind of just stayed in a fairly tight range for the majority of the rest of the day, finishing down about 70 points and actually closing down on the lows. So that was something that was a little bit different than what we had been seeing. This was something that was sort of the theme in the early parts of the year. There's no doubt about it. The disconnects each and every day. But they look like maybe they're starting to come back. We'll see if that continues as we get into the rest of the depth of this week. Volatility, we've talked about how it was in such a tight range for a while. That's starting to break out a little bit. Yesterday, we actually were trading anywhere between 18, call it 18 and a half, somewhere there. Closed right around 18 and a half, but feels like it was going to start moving to the upside. We'll talk more about that when we talk about today. But volumes a little bit lighter. A little bit surprising. We were about 30 million contracts yesterday, still a monster number in any other year, but that was a little bit off of where we have been recently in terms of some of the bigger days where we've had much more volume than that. Now, the sector strengths yesterday. Energy, absolutely one of the strongest areas, the strongest area, up about 3%. We also had materials, we had healthcare, we had industrials, all of those 1% or higher. But where do we have that weakness? Well, you look right at the NASDAQ and you see that down about 70 points, as I mentioned. Well, you got some weakness in technology, you got semiconductors, and you got biotech. And if you put all of those together and all of them weak together, that's why we had the kind of day that we did yesterday in the NASDAQ. And we look like we're starting to repeat a little bit of that. Now, one of the names yesterday that really stood out for me was we talk about these high multiple or no multiple type names. And I bring this up all the time, but those names are taking a pretty significant hit. And I'm talking about Peloton and DocuSign, but we'll focus a little bit on Okta. Now, this is one of those names that you just got to go back a couple of days and take a look at where this stock was last Friday and where it is now today. Because yesterday, not a great day. Today, again, not a great day. But that was definitely an area that was pulling on the markets as well yesterday, specifically talking about that NASDAQ market. Now, what really stood out to the strength of the markets yesterday had to be energy, as we mentioned, but look at the XOP. Now, we're talking about oil and gas, exploration, production, all that, but we're talking about the beta names and those names that are really skying to the upside. And those are those names, Baker Hughes and Holly and Schlumberger and Halliburton and all those types of names, Devon. You look at those names and the movement to the upside, the XOP has a lot of those specific names in that particular index. And it just had an absolutely wonderful day yesterday. And we're watching as the price of crude continues to move to the upside. As a matter of fact, today, a nice move up and over that 65 level. We'll see if it can hold on to that level. It seems like we've pushed up there once or twice before and then sort of pulled back. But we've been in this range we talked about with crude, 63 to 65. So we'll see how that plays out. Pre-market today, definitely some pressure on the market. We're looking at the Dow down about 150 points. You're looking at the NASDAQ down about 115 points. Get a little bit closer to the open. We had a little bit of a recovery on the Dow, not so much on the NASDAQ, still down about 115. And then quickly into the day, we started to see pressure start to mount as we saw more and more pressure put on the Dow. Dow down 190 very quickly after the open. Then you get towards that 9 o'clock, the first 30 minutes, we were down about 240. We were down about 300. Last I looked, we had recovered significantly because we were only down about 190. As I take a quick, brief look, we're back down about 240 points right this very moment. NASDAQ down 240, down 250. And now when we talk about the NASDAQ at a 14,000 level, just using that and versus a 34,000 level, you get the idea. Percentage-wise, the NASDAQ definitely getting slammed once again relative to the Dow. So volatility, you guessed it, it's spiking. We started off in somewhere and call it the mid-19s. Last I looked, we were up and over that 20 level. Now, we've been talking about how tight it's been and trading down 16 to 17 or 17 to 18. But this is a pretty significant move as we've pushed back up and over 20. And there's a lot of analysts out there who talk about volatility index who say, now you're in no man's land. If you're down there under that 20 level, now it's a buying opportunity. You get into that 20 to 25 level, there's a lot of analysts out there who talk about that being no man's land because it really isn't telling you quite enough. And you need it to either be higher where you can use it to sell or much lower where you're using it to buy. But now we're back into that no man's land. We'll see how long that lasts. We're just getting into that right now at that 20 level, and we're getting hit everywhere, it feels like. As a matter of fact, you take a look over at tech, down about 1.5%. Consumer discretion, you got communications, you got energy also under a little bit of pressure, at least early on. Semiconductors, the last I looked, they were down 2%. I think it's even worse right now. Biotech was down a little over 2.5%. I took a glimpse at that just a little while ago. It was significantly even off of that. And what's really pushing that biotech index down? Moderna certainly is one of those names, down about 6%. Novavax, last I looked, was down about 10%. So you're seeing some of that biotech pressure that you're looking. You can look at the IBB, you can look over at the XBI, or you can look at these individual names, but there's certainly some pressure on that part of the market as well. Cruise ships, casinos, those reopened stocks, you kind of look and you say, hey, what happened? Because right now we're seeing the reopened stocks under some pressure. We're also seeing a lot of those names and those different categories of stocks that actually were part of the stay-at-home world, and they're under pressure as well. So a combination, you've got Teladoc, you got Nokia, you got Okta, which I mentioned earlier, you got the semiconductors, you got Twilio, you've got Fastly. Those are under pressure. I saw the cruise ships had a little bit. I saw the casinos had a little bit of pressure. So you're seeing sort of a broad move of pushing the markets to the downside, and that's why we're seeing the kind of significant moves that we are seeing today. So 2 individual names for the unusual that I've got for you, and I've got something a little unusual. We usually don't talk about puts. I am going to be talking about the puts today, and much more difficult to diagnose exactly why people are trading the puts. Are they hedging? Are they doing this? Are they negative? So this one does stand out, though. Dell Technologies, DELL. Now, this stands out. So stock was trading about 96.60, which if you go back over the last 5 days, we've had 3 different hits of unusual option activity here, all negative, all puts. So today, what are they doing? They're buying puts. They're buying 3,400 of the May 90 puts today. Those were going for about 40 cents up to a little over 50 cents. As I mentioned, stock was trading about 96.60. And again, this is the 3rd bearish hit we've seen now in this particular name, Dell, in the last few trading sessions. So that's definitely something that stands out for me. Next, I've got VRRM, which is Verra Mobility Security Services. This one actually seeing some positive action, and they're going out in time, which is very unusual. Everything has been very, very short term. We're talking week type expiration cycles, maybe a month, maybe really long term going 2 months. Well, this one for Verra, this is going all the way out to October, the 17.5 calls. They're buying 3,200 of those. Stock was trading about 14.80, and they were paying about 75 cents for these out of the money calls, which, if the stock is going to make that kind of a move, would establish new 52-week highs for this name as well. So again, I mentioned unusual. I've got puts on one side, and I've got something that's going all the way out to October on the other side. So we've definitely got some unusual covered there. Folks, have a great day of trading. You've got to educate yourself. We've got some of the very best. I love our guys and gals. They do a tremendous job. I think they're very patient, and they will work with people. So if you don't understand the derivatives markets, you're going to want to, because we are seeing a market that definitely, especially now as volatility is getting a little bit more into the markets, you're going to want to know a little bit more about the options markets as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow.